Hey there. Welcome to Freedom by Design. Anywhere is possible through e-commerce. This is a Listing Studios podcast where we're going to flip the script on what work and freedom can look like. Have you ever dreamt of building a business that lets you do life your way? Whether it's traveling the world, spending more time with your people, or even saying goodbye to that boss of yours, then you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Tina, global entrepreneur, e-commerce enthusiast, and your guide to turning your dreams into a reality that works for you. Here, we're diving into creative strategies, real-world tips, and share stories that will inspire you. So go grab a coffee or wine. I'm not judging. Let's get comfy and let's talk about how to design a business and a life that you're obsessed with. Let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of Freedom by Design. Today, we're going to get into a crucial part of your e-commerce journey, and that's understanding your numbers. See, having a great product idea, it's just the beginning. If the numbers don't work out, you could be setting yourself up for frustration, lost money, and maybe even a failed launch. Whether you're thinking about launching your first product or adding to your existing catalog, this episode's going to help you validate your financials and understand the costs so that you're not just selling, you're actually making money. So let's dive in. All right, so let's start with some of the biggest mistakes I see new sellers make when picking a product to sell. If you've been researching products, you might have fallen into one of these traps already. Mistake number one, picking a product just because you like it. Now, passion is a great starting point for choosing a product, but it shouldn't be the only factor. Just because you love a product or think it's useful, it doesn't automatically mean that there's enough market for it. Now, it doesn't mean that you should ignore your interests. In fact, aligning your business with something that you're passionate about can be a huge advantage. But the key is to validate that passion with data. So ask yourself this: are people actively searching for this product? Is there enough demand to make it profitable? And what do the trends and competition look like? This is where market research, keyword analysis, and consumer insights come in. The best products strike a balance between what you're excited about and what the market actually wants. Instead of blindly choosing a product just because it excites you, take the extra step to ensure that it has real potential. That's where tools like keyword research, trend analysis, and consumer surveys can help confirm that your passion aligns with real customer demand. So bottom line, passion matters, but data-driven validation is what turns a great idea into a profitable product. So find the intersection between what excites you and what customers are already looking for, and that's where the success and fun happens. Mistake number two: competing without a strategy in a crowded market. I see so many new sellers trying to launch in markets that are already saturated with major brands. Think phone cases, yoga mats, or resistance bands. These are categories where page one is dominated by big name brands. They have already thousands of reviews. Now, it's not impossible to break in, but it's an uphill battle that requires more than just a good product. Many assume that an overcrowded market is a dead end, but in reality, it's proof that demand actually does exist. Now, the real mistake isn't entering a crowded market, it's doing so without a strategy. Success comes from differentiation, for example, smart positioning and finding niche opportunities within larger markets. And how can you do that? Here are some ideas. Differentiating your product. Focus on what makes your product unique. It could be a special feature, a unique design, or even a better customer experience. In episode 8, I listed 11 different ways that you can differentiate your product. The link to that episode is going to be in the show notes for you. So instead of going head to head with the big names, target maybe a specific audience that might be overlooked. Tailor your marketing and your messaging to speak directly to them. Even in a saturated market, there are always small gaps. So maybe it's a subcategory that the major brands aren't addressing. So do some research and find that niche where you can shine. And invest time in building a brand that resonates. A compelling story, maybe, or a consistent visual identity and clear values, they can make your product memorable, even when surrounded by big names. And remember, success in a crowded market isn't about avoiding competition altogether. It's about competing smartly with strong differentiation, a well thought out strategy, and excellent execution. You can not only enter a competitive market, but you can also thrive in it. The third mistake that I see sellers make is ignoring profit margins. This happens quite often. Now, you might find a product that sells well, but if your product margins are razor thin, then it's probably not worth it. Amazon fees, shipping, advertising, all of these various costs, they can eat into your profits very fast. So, if you don't calculate these in advance, you can end up with a product that's barely making you any money. We'll deep dive into the numbers in a bit, but remember, sales volume means nothing if you're not profitable. The key is to calculate all costs up front and aim for a margin that allows for reinvestment and growth. A strong product isn't just one that sells, it's one that makes you money. Mistake number four that I see is sellers not checking for seasonality or trends. So, not all products sell consistently year round, and some trends they fade as quickly as they appear. If you don't check for seasonality or long term demand, you could end up with inventory that only sells for a few months, or worse, stockpiles of a product that was hot last year but now isn't so hot. Take, for example, products like Christmas decorations, summer camping gear, or back to school supplies. They all have strong demand, but only during specific seasons. If you invest in these without a strategy for off season sales, you could face cash flow issues and unsold inventory sitting in storage. Now, on the other hand, trendy products like fidget spinners or some TikTok inspired gadgets, they might seem like gold mines. But if you enter too late, you'll struggle to compete because demand will fade. So, how do you check for seasonality and trends? First off, go to Google Trends. See if searches for your product spike only at certain times of the year. Amazon search and sales data. Look at bestsellers and sales history to spot patterns. Competitor history. Check if other brands have been able to sustain sales over time or if they drop off. Now, selling seasonal or trending product isn't always a mistake, but you need to go in with a plan. If it's seasonal, have a strategy for cash flow during off peak months. If it's trendy, be sure you're catching the wave early and not riding it after it's crashed. All right, so now that we know what not to do, let's talk about how to actually validate demand and competition before we commit to a product. Now, Amazon is the best place to start. By searching for your product using its main keywords, you'll get an instant snapshot of what the competition looks like and whether there's room for a new seller like you to enter and thrive. Here's what to pay attention to. How many sellers are offering similar products? If the search results are flooded with identical products, it might be a red flag unless you have a strong differentiator. If only a handful of sellers are offering the product, it could mean there's an untapped opportunity or it could signal low demand. Something else to look at is how many reviews do they have? If the top ranking listings have thousands of reviews, breaking into that market could be tough. If most listings have under 500 reviews or so, there's likely still room to compete, especially with the well-optimized listing and a strong branding. Another thing to check is, are the top sellers major brands or are they smaller private label sellers? If big brands dominate the first page, think Nike, Apple, or Cuisinart, they likely have deep marketing budgets and strong brand loyalty. It's going to make it harder for a new seller like you to stand out. If smaller private label brands that you don't recognize, are ranking well, that's a good indicator that new sellers can break into that space. Now remember, this is just your first step. You'll also need to validate demand, check pricing and margins, and assess differentiation opportunities to make sure that your product has real potential. Now, the next step is to use research tools like Zoof or Helium 10 or Jungle Scout. These tools are going to help you see the monthly sales volume, average selling price, the competition level, and what you want to find is a product with steady demand, reasonable competition, and pricing that allows for profit. And we'll get into that next. The third thing to check is customer sentiment with reviews and polls. Instead of guessing what people like or don't like, go straight to customer reviews of the competing products. I do that all the time. What you're going to look for would be number one, complaints and pain points. This tells you how you can improve your version. Features that people love so that you can keep those in your product. And if you want an even deeper insight, use a tool like IntelliV to run consumer polls and get real feedback before investing. The next step is to check for long-term viability. Use Google Trends and Amazon sales history to make sure that your product isn't just a fad. If demand is steady year-round, that's a green light. If it spikes and crashes, you might want to reconsider. All right, here's the fun part, crunching the numbers for profitability. The question you want to ask yourself is, will I actually make money? So before you spend a lot of money on inventory, you need to run some quick numbers. Step one, calculate your landed costs. This includes manufacturing costs per unit, shipping costs, customs, import fees, stuff like that. Now use this rule of thumb for landed cost. While aiming for less than 30% of your selling price is a good benchmark, some sellers go up to 35% depending on the product category. A lower landed cost gives you more room for ads and fees. Step two is factor in Amazon fees. Amazon takes a cut for FBA fees and referral fees. FBA stands for Fulfilled by Amazon. Use their FBA fee calculator to estimate your costs. Step three is advertising costs. Most sellers spend money on PPC ads to rank on Amazon. PPC stands for pay per click. Budget for at least 15 to 20% of your revenue going to ads at the start. 15 to 20% of revenue for PPC is accurate, especially for the initial phase. However, this can vary based on competition, bid strategy, and product niche. Some sellers may even spend more when launching. Okay, the next step is calculating your profit margin. Here's a simple formula to check your profit margin. Selling price minus landing costs minus Amazon fees minus ads, all that divided by the selling price equals the profit margin. For example, if you sell a product for $30 and your total cost is $20, your total cost is your landed cost plus Amazon fees plus ads. So you take $30 minus $20, the difference of that divided by 30, that's a 33% profit margin, which is great. Aim for at least a 30% margin to stay profitable after marketing expenses. Don't worry, you don't have to memorize this. We created a calculator for you, and the link to grab yours is in the show notes. All right, so let's do a quick recap. Now, passion is great, but data is key. Don't pick a product just because you love it. Validate demand first. Competition isn't bad, but you need a strategy. Entering a crowded market without differentiating will make it hard to stand out. Find niche opportunities and position yourself smartly. Check for seasonality and trends. Make sure your product has consistent demand or plan for handling off-season sales. Use Amazon search to assess the competition. Look at how many sellers exist, their review counts, and whether big brands are dominating in that space. Lastly, make sure that the numbers work. Factor in costs, margins, and fees, just to ensure that your product is profitable before you invest. Now, I know that crunching numbers and analyzing data can feel overwhelming, so I have made it super easy for you. Grab your free calculator. The link is in the show notes, and let's make sure that your product is set up for success from day one. Also, I know that I use a lot of jargon here, and I try to stay away from that, but sometimes it just can't be helped. Don't worry, we've included their easy to understand definitions inside the calculator. And if you found this episode to be helpful, take a second to follow us and give us a review. It helps us reach more aspiring entrepreneurs like you. See you in the next episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you're feeling inspired and you're ready to take the next step towards building a business and a life that truly excites you. If you love this episode, I'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe, leave a review, or share it with someone who could use a little extra motivation today. Don't forget to connect with me on social media or check out our website at listingstudios.com. Check out the resources mentioned in this episode, and you'll find all the details in the show notes. Until next time, keep dreaming big, taking action, and designing the life that you deserve. Remember, anywhere is possible through e-commerce. I'll catch you in the next episode.